Hi, this is Sara Levy. I'm talking about my article, How Students Navigate the Construction of Heritage Narratives, and I'm Assistant Professor of Education at Wells College. It focuses on how students make sense of histories with which they have a heritage connection. I examine three groups of students: Hmong students, Chinese students, and Jewish students, studying three relevant heritage histories, which are the Vietnam War, the modern China, and the Holocaust. And I was lucky to find three teachers who worked in areas with high populations of the three heritage groups so that I could elicit an appropriate number of participants for the study. I've been interested in how students make sense of histories that they have a connection to for a long time, since I was a Holocaust educator many years ago. And so a lot of students I worked with assumed that I was interested in the Holocaust because I was Jewish, and I was kind of curious where that went, if that applied other places, and the way students kind of identified with and made sense of histories with which they have a heritage connection. So there's been some research done, quite a bit of research done, looking at how students understand national narratives of the countries in which they're currently living, a little bit less looking at those histories with which the students identify, but that may not be tied to a national narrative. And the prior research has indicated that students are their identities matter, right? Who they are influences how they understand what happened in the past. So I was really curious about how their identities matter when they're looking at histories tied to those identities. So that was where I started. There's some theory underlying some of this, focusing mostly on narrative and memory, right? The way that we create stories and create memories. A lot of this comes back to how do we make stories, and how do we make stories that are believable and that are compelling for ourselves and for others. And also looking at where the voices that students might choose to listen to, right? They have their families, their parents, their teachers, media, film, their friends. Where are they getting their information? Who are they trusting to tell these stories? So those are some of the theoretical parts underlying this as well. Sometimes history, narrative and memory are kind of posed in opposition to the study of history, kind of disciplinary history, as being potentially more objective or more interested in interrogating multiple perspectives and looking at multiple sources, rather than memory, which looks at kind of a more cohesive story. But sometimes also in the history classroom in the United States, that line is blurred and we end up with a more cohesive narrative there as well. So kind of took all of those things into account, looking at the students I worked with. Which brings me to what exactly did I do, which is I conducted a multiple case studies, I used a multiple case studies design to conduct my research, meaning that I had two sets of cases. One was the three heritage histories themselves were the cases, so it was all of the students who identified as Hmong, their teacher, their parents, what I saw in their classroom, all of their textbooks, right? That would be one case. The other way I conceived of cases was each individual student was a case. The student, their parent, their teacher, what I observed of them in the classroom, that would be a case. So I relied primarily on semi-structured interviews as a data collection. I interviewed each student twice, once before and once after they had studied the heritage history in school, to kind of see what might change and what role school history would play in shaping their narratives. Also talked to their parents, one of their parents one time, interviewed each teacher, observed the three classrooms throughout the duration of the units. I had a total of 17 students participate, 4 Hmong students, 8 Chinese students, and 5 Jewish students. Participation varied across the sites for a wide variety of reasons. I also, in terms of analysis, used a grounded theory approach, which let me kind of look at it very open-ended and generate themes from what the students were saying. I really wanted to honor what they had to say. Went through a fairly rigorous coding process and looked for both in-case themes that were specific to the three heritage history cases, and then also looked at themes across cases, which were very interesting. So I think perhaps the most interesting and important finding was that the students all felt it was really important to have their histories included in the official narrative of school history classroom, right? And for some students, specifically the Jewish students, the Holocaust has been included in history classrooms in the United States now for several decades. They still appreciated that. And for the Hmong students, whose history was less often to be included, even though they live in a community that is a large population of Hmong people, They really appreciated their teacher including their history and making it seem valued right outside of their own community. So they really appreciated that, which really also brings me to another finding, which is the important role that teachers can play in helping students understand heritage history. Some of the students, particularly the Hmong students and the Chinese students who were second generation removed from the histories they were studying, their parents, their grandparents, their family members had experienced these events. Some of them had talked extensively about it. Some of them hadn't talked about it at all. And so the students, as one said, I felt fuzzy. I didn't know what it was. And so the teachers played a really critical role in helping students learn their own histories. And I thought that was important, something to really note as teachers. And one other thing I would note would be that students seemed more engaged with their heritage histories, right? They were emotionally connected to them. They were emotionally connected to their identity as Hmong, as Chinese, as Jewish. And so that emotional connection, that identification with the history really helped them want to dig in and see what really happened, explore multiple perspectives, do some critical thinking. And that identification didn't, as some might think, get in the way, right? But they were able to really see different perspectives and really were interested in interrogating those different perspectives. So I think there's a lot of value in including heritage histories in the classroom and in talking to students directly about what they think and what they know about the past. So thank you.